You can solve complex logistical problems at work, synthesize massive amounts of data, and manage entire teams. Yet, when you sit down to relax, you often find yourself endlessly replaying an embarrassing memory from 5 years ago. The voice inside your head narrating your life and judging that memory is a localized hallucination generated by a specific network in your brain. This is the default mode network, or DMN. It is your brain's massive background daydreaming system. When you aren't actively focused on a specific task, this network automatically takes over, generating a constant stream of self-referential thoughts and memories. Evolution built this system to prioritize survival, tasking the DMN with scanning for threats and simulating worst-case scenarios, rather than maintaining internal peace. Finding true mental quiet requires you to bypass the limits of willpower and systematically hack the biological architecture that produces the noise. Thousands of years ago, ancient Theravada monks mapped the exact mechanics of human attention, documenting a precise framework for how the mind moves from distraction to absolute focus. Modern neuroscientists have now correlated the subjective experiences detailed in these ancient palm leaf manuscripts with the objective data revealed by modern brain scans. Combining these fields produces a 10-stage technical manual designed to permanently rewire your brain's operating system. This protocol functions as a biological intervention, utilizing structural neuroplasticity to alter your brain's baseline state. The ultimate goal is to transition a brain hardwired for chaotic threat scanning into a state of effortless whole brain synchronization. Stage 1 requires absolute consistency. Sitting down for 10 minutes every single day rewires the brain more effectively than a sporadic 2-hour session, because the brain's neuroplasticity responds to frequency over intensity. Each session lays down a new neural pathway. Repeated use thickens the myelin sheath, turning a faint trail into a wide superhighway. This progress meets resistance at stage 2, forgetting. You try to focus, but attention quickly collapses into an elaborate mental fantasy. Maintaining focus requires heavy glucose consumption by the prefrontal cortex. When these metabolic reserves deplete, the prefrontal cortex fatigues, making attention shifts inevitable. Once the energy drops, your attention network defaults back to the DMN, which swivels wildly to check for non-existent threats like a security camera scanning an empty room. Distraction at this level represents the brain's evolutionary default taking over as metabolic energy drops. At stage 3, many practitioners attempt to aggressively slam the door on distracting thoughts, viewing them as obstacles to be suppressed. The brain interprets active mental suppression as a threat, triggering the fight-or-flight response. Cortisol and adrenaline rapidly spike, making the mind intensely tense and distracted. The effective hack is to redefine success as the specific moment you realize your mind has wandered. Returning to the focus object is the actual victory. Consciously celebrating that moment of waking up triggers a release of dopamine, the chemical responsible for motivation and learning. Dopamine acts as the chemical reinforcement that physically builds the new neural connection, permanently widening the pathway back to your focus object. Lasting cognitive rewiring requires you to hijack your biological reward system to reinforce mindfulness. Stage 4 transitions the mind from a flashlight swinging wildly in the dark to a lamp providing steady illumination. Your focus rests on the breath while you maintain ambient peripheral awareness of the rest of the room. This state activates the anterior cingulate cortex, your brain's internal conflict monitoring system. It functions as an alarm that sounds just before your attention is about to shift, allowing you to stabilize your focus. As the chaos subsides, the mind can swing into strong dullness. This is a state where the lack of mental friction leads to fogginess or subtle sleepiness. Mistaking this muffled, underwater feeling for deep concentration halts neuroplastic progress. Reaching stage 5 requires you to cultivate relaxed alertness. You train the brain to maintain intensity without tension, allowing it to generate high-frequency gamma waves associated with peak performance. Conquering dullness transforms the practice into a state of highly energized, brilliant insight. At stages 6 and 7, you develop exclusive attention by maintaining a vast, inclusive awareness. You allow thoughts and sounds to flow through a wide peripheral space without ever letting them pull your central focus away. This prevents the meditation narrator, that inner voice evaluating your progress, from hijacking your attention. This exclusive focus allows competing brain regions to synchronize. As these networks stop fighting for dominance, the mind achieves unification, producing intense physical pleasure known as PT and deep delta wave rest while you remain fully conscious. Deep synchronization leads directly into the jhanas, states of meditative absorption so complete that the ordinary sense of self temporarily dissolves. These blissful states can lead to spiritual materialism, where the ego uses these exotic experiences to build a new sense of spiritual superiority. Mastering stage 8 results in mental pliancy. By pacifying the senses and ending the physical push and pull of sensory desire, the brain develops absolute cognitive flexibility, allowing you to direct your focus anywhere with zero effort. These extraordinary meditative states are tools used to examine consciousness rather than the final destination. Stage 9 is the point where the division between concentration and mindfulness completely dissolves. The practice is no longer something you do, it is a state that operates through you. This shift into whole brain synchronization is objectively verifiable via fMRI, showing a profound change in how the brain processes information. Brain networks that normally compete against each other, focused attention and the resting state networks, now fire in perfect, unified harmony. This creates a quality of knowing without thinking, where complex information is processed fully formed without the burden of a running mental commentary. This state represents the dynamic calmness of a perfectly tuned engine running at maximum efficiency. Stage 10 is the natural state that remains when all strenuous mental effort and unnecessary friction finally cease. This transition permanently dampens the center for self-referential processing in the brain, while highly activating the insula, the region associated with embodied awareness. In daily life, emotions like sadness or frustration still move through awareness, but they no longer crystallize into a heavy story about a self who is suffering. The ultimate mystical experience is beautifully ordinary, allowing for total presence while performing everyday tasks without the burden of a mental narrator. The constant, exhausting background narration of me and mine has finally gone quiet. This 10-step protocol rewires your biology so you can truly, completely inhabit the world for the very first time.